Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Hercule Poirot and the Masquerade of Glass and Gilt, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The Last Guest at the Midnight Train. The shriek of the whistle cut through the night, a sound laced with urgency as the midnight train to Eldersbury lurched to a halt with a slow, ominous shudder. The air, thick with the scent of steam and the cold kiss of impending rain, was abruptly shattered by a panicked cry from within one of the private compartments. Murder! The word echoed through the narrow corridor, fracturing the brittle silence that clung to the suffocating stillness of the night. Hercule Poirot, seated in the adjoining compartment, sprang to his feet, his heart racing. A fleeting look exchanged with the curious fellow passengers, each one clutching their wraps and hats as if they might carapace themselves from the terror that had emerged from behind a locked door. He arrived before the compartment, only to find a shivering maid fumbling with the key, her hands trembling as she sought to produce the means of entry. "Please, open it," he ordered, his voice steady in its command, despite the tumult in his chest. With a swift twist of the knob, the door creaked open to reveal a scene carved in horror. Lord Archibald Whitmore, a prominent member of Parliament, lay sprawled on the floor, his eyes wide in the gloss of death. A single crimson stain, a striking contrast on the pale fabric of his jacket, spread across his chest like an ominous flower. The accompanying terror filigreed the air, a tapestry woven with disbelief and rising panic. "Call the police! Someone must get the authorities!" A voice trembled from the nearby paws of startled onlookers. Poirot, in contrast to the flurry surrounding him, trained his gaze on the lifeless body, his mind racing to pass the scene. Lord Whitmore's expensive watch still ticked with unyielding insistence, a heartbeat misplaced in the uncanny circumstances of its owner's death, while his spectacles lay unbroken near his head, suggesting he had not anticipated trouble. Poirot peered closely at the wristwatch. He noted the time, 10 minutes past midnight. "Now it is curious, no?" he murmured, addressing the maid, whose wide eyes looked to him for guidance. "The time of death, plausibly not long before our arrival at Eldersbury." "I heard nothing," the maid wailed, bringing her hands to her face, yet her frivolity belied an inattention, an anxious edge in her tone, a quiver masked by her outward distress. "Quite," Poirot agreed, and with this his gaze roamed the gathered passengers. Each face bore the shadow of secrets. The imposing figure of Sir Jasper Hollingsworth leaned against the corridor wall, a grin plastered on his face that felt dreadfully out of place amidst the chaos, while Lady Evangeline, cloaked in a feather-down shawl, trembled, a glimmer of fear flickering in her sapphire-blue eyes. "Do you not think it strange?" "The train, it is a closed ecosystem," Poirot continued, "but all claim ignorance of its events." A young man in the corner, John Featherstone, seemed to squirm beneath Poirot's steely scrutiny. His dark suit appeared tailored and costly, yet the creased brow and fidgeting fingers betrayed a gnawing discomfort. I was simply about my business," he mumbled, but a glance from Poirot sharpened the collision between comfort and suspicion. I noted nothing out of the ordinary. A remarkable alibi, Poirot replied, leaning closer, his voice an almost conspiratorial whisper. But the others, they may very well disagree. The pressure he exerted, his steely gaze disarming, enacted questions that commanded answers and revealed vulnerability beneath the surface of bravado. Whispers rippled through the gathered crowd as they pushed forward in excitement, the mingling sense of cologne and fear thickening in the confined air. "Perhaps Lord Whitmore was not as beloved as you suppose," Sir Jasper interjected, his voice dripping with false concern. "Politics, you see. It can invite deadly enemies from the unlikeliest of places." Poirot's eyes narrowed. His intuition flared at Sir Jasper's insinuation. Was the man suggesting that perhaps Whitmore had cultivated his adversaries? Or was there a deeper discord here than mere ambition? And yet, if he possessed that many foes, would they not have made their assault openly? No, Lord Whitmore was not slain in vengeance. He was robbed of something more clandestine. The tension thickened palpably, closing around them like a noose. Poirot could sense the unease, the mercurial shift, as each passenger considered their place in the narrative, a murderous web of motives and fears tightening with every spoken word. He moved forwards, heedless of the unfolding chatter among the muddled congregation. "You, my dear maid," Poirot called sharply, "shortly before this incident, did you not see any unusual interactions? Invitations perhaps exchanged intimately?" She stammered, then hesitated, recalling her observations. "Well, I did see Lord Whitmore speaking with Mr. Featherstone. They seemed quite engrossed in conversation," she murmured, an added weight returning to her brows. "Ah, a detail that could be quite significant," Poirot declared, with a glimmer of purpose igniting within him. "And yet, how curious it is that our dear Lord Whitmore died whilst his conversation was underway." Featherstone flinched. A glimmer darkened in his gaze momentarily. A soft thunder growled outside, responding to the rising tumult in the compartment, obscuring further thoughts with echoes of its ominous presence. Suddenly, the bright flickering of the lanterns dimmed for a heartbeat, plunging them into a brief limbo of shadow. And when illumination returned, Featherstone was gone. "Where is he?" Poirot demanded with an unyielding authority, scanning the panic-stricken faces before him. There was no answer, only a shared sense of dread hanging heavy in the room as the dreadful realization settled. One of them was hiding, one of them was escaping, not just from the compartment, but perhaps from a much darker implication altogether. And just like that, the atmosphere snapped as the clock chimed the haunting hour of midnight. A bell tolling a sinister midnight announcement, ushering forth the very essence of chaos now gathering in their midst. With every heartbeat, the truth felt closer, yet as distant as the dark summer clouds shrouding Eldersbury beyond the windows, kicking a shiver of foreboding into that secretive hour. Chapter 2. A letter that arrived too late. An icy scream shattered the fragile calm of the train compartment, a sound dripping with horror that turned every head toward the source. Poirot's heart raced as he rushed back to where he had last seen the only suspect, John Featherstone. But as he burst into the room, he was met not with the culprit's fleeing figure, but with Lady Evangeline, pale and trembling, her gloved hand pressed firmly against the ornate, blood-streaked sleeve of Lord Whitmore's jacket. She clutched something, a letter, and the stark contrast between the crispness of the paper and the deepening crimson was like a slashing wound against the backdrop of chaos. "Fetch the authorities at once," Poirot commanded, his voice slicing through the confusion before turning his gaze upon her. "My dear Lady Evangeline, what do you know?" I found it," she gasped, her eyes wide with panic, the fragile letter fluttering in her hand as if alive. It was tucked into his breast pocket." With a quick finesse, she extended the letter toward Poirot, her thumb nervously brushing the edges. The sight of the sealed envelope smacked of foreboding, an unseen twist of fate that had found its way into his hands. Poirot accepted the missive delicately, using the tips of his fingers as if it were a venomous snake, and broke the seal. Inside, the elegant handwriting unfolded a secret cocooned in dark intentions. "My darling Archibald," the words sang, tinged with a melancholy urgency. "I have information that could change everything. Meet me at 10 at Clavering Field. There are those who wish you harm." But the ominous ink was interrupted mid-sentence, an unfinished plea wrapped in the late-night air, the passion of affection mingling with the fear that had proven fatal. "Wait, this is dated from the night before," Poirot exclaimed, his mind spiraling with implications. But he was already dead when the clock struck midnight. Who delivered this letter? The room shifted. Whispers snaked through the crowd like shadows, and at that moment Sir Jasper stepped forward, his bravado a mask hiding the fear flickering in his eyes. "What nonsense is this? A mere note proves nothing. I could have written it myself." His tone dripped with bravado, but the tremble behind it hinted at deeper concerns that Poirot had just begun to untangle. "So you know the provenance of this letter?" Poirot challenged, probing deeper. The gathering crowd fell silent, their tremors of fear wrapping tighter around them. "Or do you fear what it may imply?" Jasper paled, his bravado wilting under Poirot's unwavering gaze. "Why should I care about it? A note doesn't prove a murder." "No, but it may well illuminate the darkness lurking within our little voyage, Sir Jasper," Poirot interjected sharply, studying his face, the shadows playing tricks in the gaslight. "Then let it illuminate, but I do not know what harm can arise from a simple note," he spat back. Yet Poirot could see the crack in his facade, an anxious glimmer, a bead of sweat forming against the hollow of his throat. Meanwhile, Lady Evangeline swayed unsteadily, her breath quickening. At that moment, revealing a profound fear in her sapphire blue eyes. What if the note is about me? Archibald and I had a discussion last week," she mumbled, her voice cracking. "He mentioned feeling threatened, and I—" "Threatened by whom?" Poirot pressed, his voice firm, yet inviting. He sensed the tumult within her, a cyclone of affection, wrapped in dread. By someone named Featherstone," she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips as if in fear of being heard by others. "He intended to expose Archibald. Financially, I mean, and we feared for his life." Featherstone's name landed like a thunderclap, lofting suspicion toward the corners of the room, clouds of doubt swirling obscenely around the gathered souls. "And yet he is now absent, non? Is it possible he was aware of this letter?" Poirot mused aloud, directing the sparks of his intellect toward the puzzle. I don't know, Lady Evangeline cried, frustration bleeding into her exhaustion. "But Archibald was afraid. I just wanted to protect him." "Protecting him, my dear Lady Evangeline?" The thunder outside rolled in, punctuating the tension, lighting the dim room momentarily with violent flashes. "That could indeed suggest a motive, non?" He lowered his voice to a near whisper, his steely eyes catching hers, holding her captive. Or perhaps your love gave way to desperation. Before she could respond, Sir Jasper interrupted, his composure cracking under strain. Enough. This soliloquy amounts to nothing. We should be focused on finding Featherstone. He's the one who is missing, and he had the most to gain from Lord Whitmore's demise. Let us leave this cadre of finger-pointing behind and search the train. Poirot surveyed their faces, a mix of tension and uncertainty infectious among the throng. They had all been cast into a web of suspicion, but in that moment of fraught confrontation, something stirred within him. The patterns were there, although still obscured by the fog of deceit. He focused once again on the letter, gripping it tightly as if it might dissolve into shadows. The echo of a repeated shout from outside gripped their attention. "The authorities are here," came the cry, an unsettling undercurrent of authority that sparked hope and terror alike. Poirot felt the pressure mount. Time was not on his side. "Quickly, we must find Featherstone." He spun on his heels, the urgency of the moment propelling his every action. The doors of the compartment flew open, letting in a loud jangle of footsteps as uniformed officers flooded in, illuminating the corners cloaked in darkness. And we must uncover all that this letter promises before it fades into silence again. As he made to lead them out, a sudden gasp from Lady Evangeline froze his steps. "Poirot, look!" Her finger pointed to a shadow creeping along the corridor, poised to slip away from the gathering. "Stop!" Poirot yelled, but even as the words left his lips, the shadow darted swiftly out of reach into the labyrinth of the train. "After them!" Poirot commanded, heart racing, dread clawing at his insides. Would they snatch away a truth destined to illuminate the dark recesses of this mystery before they could even grasp it? Uncertainty gnawed at him like a voracious beast as he sprinted into the night, the one chance to unveil the murderer now slipping, just as the elusive suspect vanished into the veil of shadows. Chapter 3. Alibis as Fragile as Glass. A single gunshot echoed through the vast, opulent halls of Eldersbury Manor, piercing the thick silence like a knife through velvet. The sound reverberated, sending a quake of terror fluttering through the gathered guests, their elegant attire now heavy with dread, decorum forgotten in a heartbeat. Poirot stood frozen, the heavy scent of gunpowder hanging in the air, mingling with fears that rushed like the flash of lightning outside, illuminating the grim tableau of fractured alliances and exposed treachery. As he raced toward the source of the chaos, the flickering gaslights cast jittery shadows, dancing along the walls as if mocking their sheltered lives now threatened by violence. He burst into the drawing room, only to find Lady Evangeline collapsed against the grand piano, sobbing, while Sir Jasper stood rigid by the fireplace, his face pale as a ghost, eyes wide with shock. The glint of metal caught Poirot's eye as it lay on the polished floor, a small revolver, its barrel smudged with the residue of an earlier panic. "What has occurred?" Poirot demanded, his gaze sweeping over the chaotic scene, settling dangerously on Jasper. "Why does the air taste of fear and gunpowder?" "Archibald, I mean Lord Whitmore, he was just here," Lady Evangeline choked out, her voice breaking. "I thought he was safe. I had the letter, the one that he—" She stumbled over her words, the weight of her previous panic holding her captive as her emotions spiraled. "His safety? Or your own?" Jasper interjected sharply, his composure shattered, revealing his own buried fears. "You had something to gain, Lady Evangeline. We all did." Poirot narrowed his eyes, the shadows flickering across the room, catching the tension, straining the atmosphere to breaking point. "Do not let passion entangle judgment, Sir Jasper," Poirot cautioned, feeling the rumble of thunder outside synchronizing ominously with the growing storm brewing within the room. Lady Evangeline was but safeguarding a truth she could scarcely understand. "All I know," she spoke with fervent sincerity, "is that Lord Whitmore had enemies, dangerous ones, and I could see the change in him, the fear tinting his usually vibrant spirit. I swear to you, Poirot, he received threats, sinister threats." "Threats?" Poirot repeated, intent on fishing deeper beneath the surface. "Who were these threats from?" "There were whispers, rumors. I don't know who they were, but he mentioned a name, Featherstone. I thought he was paranoid, but now—" Her voice faltered, vulnerability spilling into her every word. "Now it seems perhaps his fears were not unfounded. Or perhaps they were meant to disguise something else," Poirot mused, recalling the letter still clutched tightly in his pocket. It was a fragile thing, like the glass of each guest's alibis, polished and appealing yet dangerously thin. One false move, and they could shatter. If Mr. Featherstone was indeed the architect of Lord Whitmore's enemies, why then would he disappear in the wake of this chaos? Jasper barked out a derisive laugh, but it lingered in his throat like a fragmented shout. "There are many players in this murky affair, Poirot. Are we to question everyone's motives? You cannot expect us all to have alibis as perfect as yours, though I dare say perhaps yours too are a rather convenient fabrication." Poirot's eyes narrowed, amusement mingling with irritation as he dissected Jasper's nervous deflections. "And yet, have you provided one yourself? You have been rather keen to distance yourself from this case. What were you doing when I heard the shot?" But the defense fell away, revealing nothing but the quivering edges of his desperation. "I was, watching the storm. I'm quite ill at ease in such weather." "Then let us ascertain your whereabouts in a logical manner," Poirot pressed, stepping closer, letting the tension build between them like a tightly coiled spring. "Surely there are prerequisites of honor among your esteemed friends, yes?" "Of course not. Honor is reserved for those who can afford such luxuries, Poirot." Jasper's voice was still, yet the sharp tremor betrayed him. "I was simply outside the room. I heard the commotion, and then the shot. It came quickly, so quickly," he added, his demeanor escalating into frantic defensiveness that split open as the fear became palpable. Lady Evangeline, recovering slightly, chimed in. "But Poirot, I did see you speaking with Whitmore not long before the incident." "Did you now?" Jacques turned his intense gaze upon her, a new kind of scrutiny creeping into his demeanor. "How convenient for you that my whereabouts grew hazy while Whitmore's life fizzled away." Poirot motioned for calm, desperately aware that each moment galvanized their dissent. "A simple matter of corroboration would illuminate the shadows lingering around us," he murmured. "Let us involve every minute detail. Such an alibi must be tested, just as I will test yours." "But who else then? Who among us could have possible reason to wish him harm?" Lady Evangeline cried, her outburst of desperation echoing off the walls, further collapsing their fragile attempts at clarity. "We cannot dismiss the possibility that both friends and foes might wear a mask of civility," Poirot answered, a quiet intensity driving his focus while absorbing her petrified expression. "Perhaps hidden beneath suitable decor. In this manner, where secrets abound, one could find prepared alibis so fragile they would not withstand close scrutiny." The sound of hurried footsteps drew them toward the hallway, a stark contrast to the surreality of the parlor. Poirot stepped forward, sensing the fragility of the moment in a way he had not since arriving here. A scent of secrets clinging to everything, a stillness, an unfurling malice. The door swung open abruptly as a young footman rushed in, panic etched on his face. "The authorities, sir. They've found something, an explanation for that dreadful noise." He swallowed, the weight of unspoken discoveries hanging palpably in the air. "Speak," Poirot demanded, his voice ringing with authority, piercing through the disarray of emotions that still clung in the air. "It's Lady Evangeline's brother, sir. They believe he's been found." The footman's words hung like a guillotine, suspended above them all. "At the estate's edge. He's... Poirot took a step back as Lady Evangeline gasped, clutching the piano's edge, lost and drawn as if the edge of the world were crumbling beneath her. "No!" she cried, horror creeping in as he saw every bit of the facade shatter behind her eyes. And then, like a candle extinguished by a wave, Lady Evangeline's breath caught in her throat, eyes wide with realization. "Poirot!" she shrieked, the soft light dimming further, contorting ominously with dread, while shadows lengthened, curling around their lives. "What do you mean? What are they saying?" He pressed fiercely, desperate for the truth. "It's..." Suddenly, more shells of reality cracked as a loud thud resounded from the corridor. Panic engulfed the room, breathless anticipation turned to terror as the shadows shifted into more than just deceptive shapes, into reflections of a terror awaiting them outside. Time stretched, bulging as the truth loomed near, but something was coming, something they may already be too late to stop. An unseen hand poised to snatch away everything they thought they understood, as a sense of dreadful urgency tightened its grip. Each alibi across the room, once meticulously crafted, now swayed precariously, a collection of shards scattered, waiting for the blow that would shatter them utterly. And within the tumult of voices, a scream echoed towards him, sharp as glass, cutting through the air, leaving only shards of doubt in its wake. Chapter 4. The Will That Was Never Signed. A crash splintered the darkness, a sound that sent shivers rippling through the gathered wreckage of grief in Eldersbury Manor, as a pair of lanterns swung wildly in the corridor, their flickering light revealing a glimmer of something, or someone, far more sinister. Lord Whitmore's bloodied handkerchief, crumpled and discarded like a broken promise upon the floorboards. Gasps erupted from the guests, still trembling in the drawing-room, the spectre of assassination shimmering hauntingly in their collective consciousness. Poirot stood rooted to the initial shock of it, but a torrent of questions surged into his mind, unyielding as a storm threatening to take form outside. "Gather round," he commanded, his voice cutting through the panic like a knife through cotton. "We must elucidate the events leading to this tragedy." The flicker of candlelight played across his sharp features, casting shadows that danced along the walls, mimicking the chaotic emotions swirling within the manor. Lady Evangeline was first to react, her grief morphing into confusion and dread as she leaned closer, trying to comprehend the implications of the blood-stained cloth. "What does this mean, Poirot? Is it connected to the will?" Her voice quivered like the light around them, taut with unspoken fear. "Ah, but that is the very crux of the matter, mademoiselle," Poirot replied, narrowing his gaze. "A will. Rumours abound that Lord Whitmore prepared one. A new testament to his desires, perhaps, but where is it now?" The words hung in the air, thick as the humid summer night, and a silence fell. Thick, foreboding, pregnant with the agonizing need for truth. Sir Jasper, still rigid by the fireplace, suddenly unburdened his lips, a note of bravado attempting to mask the trepidation lurking behind his eyes. "I have not heard of any will, Poirot. His affairs were always so disorganized. He often spoke whimsically of taking on projects, but never followed through. How could one expect a significant document to exist in such a state?" His words dripped with mock concern. Yet Poirot perceived the deep-rooted nerve beneath, fear that perhaps, just perhaps, his alibi might soon itself become embroiled in chaos. Perhaps someone believed this chaotic mess was a ruse, Poirot countered, his voice rising above the rising tension, a tactic to obscure a more sinister intent. He studied Jasper's face, the pale sheen of perspiration, and the slight twitch in his jaw that betrayed him. Indeed, fears of financial loss or a shift in inheritance can bring out the most deviant of motives in men. Lady Evangeline's eyes flashed with recognition, her voice trembling as she spoke. But could not this will also shield someone? A secret meant to betray those who had claimed to love him. What if he had designed it as an act of defense, Poirot? There must be a reason for its disappearance. "An excellent point, mademoiselle," Poirot said, galvanizing himself, focusing, his mind racing down new avenues of inquiry. "We must uncover where this will might lie lurking. And yet, another question arises," he continued, fixing his gaze back on Sir Jasper, who appeared increasingly anxious as the seconds flitted by. "What of you, Sir Jasper? Where were you when the shot was fired? Speak clearly, if only to dispel the cloud of your own ineptitude." Jasper stammered, an imperceptible quiver in his voice, underscoring his cowardice. "I told you. I was near the window, watching the tempest outside." He took an involuntary step back, eyes darting toward the door, as if seeking an escape route. "Sir Jasper," Poirot interjected smoothly, "you seem overly fixated on the unyielding storm. Might I remind you that the tempest abides behind glass, while danger lurks amidst us here? You would rather evade the dark than confront it. Concealment, after all, has its own price." His eyes glinted, calculating every nuance, every pulse of fear etched on Sir Jasper's face. "Enough of this," Lady Evangeline interjected, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Let us return to the will. If Whitmore's death, tragic as it is, was spurred by something tangible, then what of those who may benefit from his demise?" The words reverberated within the drawing room like a plague unleashed, and each pair of eyes carefully flicked to the other, suspicion pooling like rainwater in a cavern. Poirot pushed away from the wall, transitioning back into motion, his thoughts coalescing like thunderclouds overhead. "Let us not overlook details. There are whispers, and where there are whispers, there is interest. Do not forget the name Featherstone, known for his very lucrative dealings and ties with Lord Whitmore, rumored to flirt like a knife's edge with betrayal. Has he appeared in your conversations since the exodus into darkness?" As though a lightning bolt had struck nearby, Sir Jasper recoiled, lips pressed tightly together, his composure shattering like the silence that had once ruled their gathering. "Featherstone has no claim. I'm certain of that," he spluttered, eyes darting as guilt dripped from his brow. "He's a mere ghost, haunting an estate of past glories." Poirot's brow furrowed, a new suspicion igniting within him. Customer of the shadows, weaving through their emotional ties. But even shadows do not drift without a reason. Who knows what dark desires drive men desperate to hold on to life or wealth? Before the charged atmosphere could deepen further, a swift shuffle echoed through the drawing room as the young footman re-entered, a crumpled piece of paper clutched in his hand, eyes wide with urgency. Sir, this, this may be something important. I found it in Lord Whitmore's study, hidden beneath his desk. Poirot stepped forward, a pang of anticipation coiling in his chest. Ah, what treasure do you bring, mon cher? His heart raced as the footman unfolded the paper, revealing a hastily scribbled note, ink smudged as if written in haste, threatening and raw, each word an accusing finger pointed towards the treachery that permeated the estate. Lady Evangeline gasped. What does it say? Is it from Lord Whitmore? The question shimmered like a flame flickering in the dark. No sooner had she asked than the colour drained from the footman's face. It's a draft of his will, but there's something scrawled at the bottom. A name, please. His hand trembled. Poirot seized the paper from his grip, eyes pinched tight as he read the final words. If anything should happen to me, it is Featherstone who will inherit. Before the realization could settle, a crash outside jolted them as the rain bore down in sheets against the windows. All eyes turned toward the door, just as a series of frantic footsteps echoed down the hall, and the bolt of the door rattled under a hurried hand. Then came the soft click just before it swung wide. Shocked gasps rippled through the room, tracking the tall figure stepping inside. None other than Featherstone himself, wet and bedraggled, with a wildness in his eyes that spoke of secrets not yet unveiled and a presence that blazed like a harbinger of fate. Something terrible has happened, he gasped, breathless, urgency peppering his voice as he rubbed droplets from his brow, peering at the assembled guests. The authorities are here. The entire estate might be under siege. Poirot stood at the epicenter of the gathering storm, a knot of cold inkling threading through his heart, knowing that beneath their tempestuous gazes and fright-laden words lay more revelations to unfold, an intertwining complexity that could obliterate them all. With every beat, an overwhelming truth tightened its grip, an intimation built with relentless ferocity. Who truly held the will to power, life, and death within Eldersbury Manor? The weight of unspoken tensions lay palpable, a shackle holding them all hostage. The hand of ambition, once hidden beneath fragments of honor and civility, now uncoiled, twisting into forms unseen. A dangerous chessboard elevated by desperation, with every move igniting intention. As Poirot's sharp eyes met Featherstone's haunted gaze, lightning crackled outside, illuminating the dark corners of the room, echoing their unvoiced fears, amplified by doubt. The game begins in earnest, Poirot mused inwardly, just as the lights flickered and extinguished, plunging them into chaos as the world around them spiraled into unforeseen chaos. Chapter 5. A vanishing suspect. A shriek sliced through the pitch-black silence of Eldersbury Manor, reverberating off the cold stone walls like a bolt of lightning, leaving a palpable thunderclap in its wake. Poirot's heart thundered in response, racing in time with the chaos unraveling around him as the flickering lanterns cast chaotic shadows dancing on the grim faces of the remaining guests. "He's gone," cried the young footman, his voice cracked with confusion and dread. "Featherstone, he's vanished." The news hit like a sudden storm, each gasp in the room intensifying the rising tension. Poirot stepped forward, feeling the weight of their collective gaze and the electrified air suffocating the space. "Gone?" he repeated slowly, his meticulously cultivated calm contrasting starkly with the chaos brewing in the drawing room. "Mon Dieu, this is most alarming indeed, non? When last did you see him?" I was tending to the fire," the footman stuttered, flicking nervous glances toward the door through which Featherstone had just entered moments before. One moment he was here, and the next, nothing. I don't know how it happened. Poirot's mind, tireless as the grinding storm outside, turned over the fragments of information with quiet urgency. The atmosphere had shifted toward a suffocating sense of dread. The walls seemed to close in, cloaking them all in the shadows of suspicion. He glanced around, noting the responses of each guest, every minute twitch or change in complexion, revealing hidden fears. Rien de tout, ma petite, he murmured, folding his arms, considering the implications of their guest's sudden flight. This absence is no mere happenstance. It is a maneuver, a desperate ploy that betrays a guilt. Do you not see? Lady Evangeline, trembling with a blend of fear and intrigue, leaned closer, her eyes wide. You think he has fled? What if he is in danger? Perhaps Lord Whitmore's death has stirred deeper waters than we comprehend. Simplistic, mademoiselle, Poirot replied, his tone a careful balance of authority and curiosity. Consider the nature of the shadow left behind. Featherstone is a man who, if guilty, may well have his reasons to flee, but others are involved. The will, his inheritance promised, haunting him like a spectre. Where then does he run, if not to hide from truth? Sir Jasper, inadvertently twitching upon hearing the mention of the will, cleared his throat. There are other possibilities, aren't there? Perhaps he received alarming news. Or I dare say someone is out of their wits with madness or grief. And what of Featherstone's own past actions? There are tales of his standing in the community, ever eager to seize opportunity. The words hung thickly in the air, each syllable dripping with suspicion, as he cast quick, fleeting glances at Lady Evangeline. A curious narrative indeed, Sir Jasper, Poirot replied smoothly, watching the man's disposition shift. But I cannot abide your insinuations without further proof. Featherstone may be upon us yet, should he wish to test his luck. We must be keen in our observations, not forget the storm of emotions pummeling us all. As if summoned by their apprehension, a loud crack of thunder echoed in the night outside, shaking the very windows of the manor. Poirot's gaze narrowed, focused on the shadows creeping nearer, mischief and entanglements tangled within. I require access to his quarters, the study, he declared. There, one may find remnants of truth or folly. I doubt there's anything left to find, Lady Evangeline interjected, her confidence shaken. If he were truly guilty, he'd have left something, an indication, a clue. This is senseless, all of it. But look at this, mademoiselle, Poirot interjected, emotion infusing his words like a pulse in the latent air. Fear has drawn every face dark, and suspicions swirl like clouds before the tempest. Lord Whitmore's death and Featherstone's disappearance intertwine. There must be remnants in the air, threads to pull at. He strode purposefully toward the door, but halted abruptly, noting how the guests shifted uneasily. The vulnerability of uncertainty as tangible as the dampness seeping through the walls. There was more to this, a wellspring of anxiety and ambition that smelled of deceit. If he truly stirs as a spectre, it is merely because he is ensnared by the shadows of his past. I suspect he may already be languishing within their grips. The footman gasped, his white knuckles tightening around a lantern. But what is it you think Featherstone desires, sir? Ah, therein lies the crux, my young friend. Desire, when intertwined with desperation, one may miscalculate. Poirot's voice held an iron edge, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase. But to find our wayward suspect, we must illuminate the way. Who else does Featherstone attract, I wonder? He turned to the remaining guests, assessing the distinct tension that crackled madly in the space between them. Then I require a tale, a story spun of where he is most likely to shelter. A tentative silence settled, tension thickening as every guest scrambled within their minds, searching their hearts for alliances and truths concealed in the cast of their relationships. "There's the garden," exclaimed a voice, Sir Jasper, who brightened too eagerly. "Featherstone often spoke of treasures hidden amongst the foliage, didn't he? Perhaps he would flee there. It's isolated, in the heart of this storm. Who would search there?" Poirot culled his thoughts, the flicker of interest igniting. "Enlightenment, Sir Jasper, but what are we truly capable of fearing beneath this cloak of nighttime?" He glanced toward the window, where torrents of rain blurred the facade of the world outside. "We shall approach the garden, but with precaution. There is power here in the storm, my friends, a chaos best avoided. Yet let us not ignore the shadows of ambition. Gather your courage and allow us to venture beyond these walls." They moved toward the door, Poirot leading with a keen sense deterring danger and hope as they crossed the threshold into the deepening night. Just as they reached the outer entrance, a loud, splintering crash echoed from the garden beyond, a voice piercing through the roar of wind, a shout, a scream that sent chills racing down their spines, cutting through the evening's unease. "Featherstone!" It resonated, urgent and wild, striking against the air with desperation and panic. Poirot's heart raced as every eye turned towards him, and in that moment, a dark realization dawned. The game had shifted, and danger lay heavy upon them. They had drawn closer to the truth, or perhaps it was the truth that had drawn nearer, unveiling a revelation cloaked in terror. He pushed through the door, the wind howling like a banshee, their minds racing with fears unspoken. What had they truly been chasing? And what lay buried beneath the shadows of Eldersbury Manor, a reckoning yet to unfold, a twisted thread of fate hovering just beyond their reach? Chapter 6. Shadows of the Past. A high-pitched scream reverberated in the dark, forcing its way through the wind-lashed windows of Eldersbury Manor, a raw edge to the cry that shattered the air like glass. Poirot's pulse quickened, the brittle tension freezing the gathered crowd, glancing at one another, eyes wide and fearful in the dim gaslight. As the echoes faded into stillness, he sensed it, a lurking dread, tangible and thick as fog, saturating the atmosphere with unspoken accusations. "Lady Evangeline," another voice echoed, less certain, punctuated with panic. "Featherstone, he's here. Look." The startled footman's voice pitched a note of confusion against the drumming rain outside, revealing shadows flitting through the garden like malevolent spirits. Poirot rushed outside, seizing the moment with redoubled intent, drawn by the conjured spectre of fear. The storm raged inclement around them, transforming their hunt into a nightmare of doubts. He could barely make out the dark figure grasping at the air beyond the manicured hedges. "Hold," Poirot commanded, his figure slicing into the murk like a keen blade, his voice firm, yet urgently deliberate. "Show yourself." His demand resonated, chased by a clap of thunder, illuminating the night sky in a quicksilver flash that caught a man huddled beneath the shelter of a sprawling oak. Featherstone emerged from the shadows, shivering, as rain plastered his tousled hair to his forehead, a deer caught in the glare of headlights. His eyes flickered wildly as he met Poirot's steely gaze. I couldn't stay inside. They're here for me," he stammered, a tremor seeping into his tone, his breathing harsh from the night's exertion. I was only trying to warn you." A warning? Poirot stepped closer, the wind biting at his collar. Explain, Featherstone. What chaos unfolds upon us? Danger hung unresolved in the air, and with every word, Poirot sought to uncover the barest motives unveiled beneath the trembling man's desperation. The surrounding guests crept forward into the andriod of the chaos they'd endeavored to flee. He could feel the weight of their gazes, every nuance of suspicion shifting between them like the flitting shadows in the storm. The authorities believe I am to blame, that I may have played a role in Lord Whitmore's death. Featherstone gasped, his voice breaking, the haunted glint in his eyes revealing a more profound gravity. I didn't want this. I tried to help. With the will, someone else is involved, someone who wants the estate for themselves. His words spilled forth like a torrent of anguished confession, revealing a tangled web of betrayal and fear woven within the confines of Eldersbury Manor. As did Lord Whitmore entrust his legacy to you, Poirot observed closely, his mind sifting through the meaning lodged within the man's trembling confession. A terrible burden for a man of ambition. This involvement. Who, pray tell, do you suspect? Featherstone's gaze darted to the gathered group. I can't say, but the tension in the house, the way they exchanged glances when I mentioned the will, it felt sinister. They've known each other too long. Secrets lurk behind their smiles. At the center, there's a sinister trade, a bribe, a threat. Sir Jasper, perhaps? An unsteady voice from the guests surfaced, shrouded in skepticism. It is no secret his finances have suffered. To seize what he believes is rightfully his, he'd hardly be the first to be perilled by ambition. Or Lady Evangeline's past, another murmured, eyes glinting with accusation. Whispers buzzed like a hive stirred from slumber, intentions folding around half-realized fears. Each spoke of the greater wheel spinning out of control. Poirot remained poised amidst the swell of rising accusations, his calculative gaze floating among the grim faces. Let us not jump to conclusions, mes amis. Fear can transform innocent beings into unwitting pawns, he urged, lifting a steady hand. Still, Featherstone's warning rings a note of truth. Presence of ill intent lurks beneath complacent facades. Tell me, what did you discover before this metamorphosis wrought havoc? But before Featherstone could respond, an unexpected figure slipped from the shadows, a woman clad in a drenched raincoat whose presence drowned the charged atmosphere. Wrenched from the memory of their earlier quarrel, it was Agatha, her face seething with fear and determination. There's something you must see, Poirot, she said, her voice urgent and low, just above a whisper amid the roar of the storm. I overheard them. In the study, there's a letter, one that could unravel it all. Her hand clutched the glinting edge of an envelope, soaked with rain, yet unyielding in its severity. Poirot's instincts prickled alive, drawing him forth, keenly aware of the confluence of personal turmoil now pooling together in this wretched night. Then lead the way, mademoiselle, he commanded with fervor, recognizing the converging threads swirling into a web, ripe for unraveling. As they raced back toward the manor, lightning unraveling the darkness in jagged bursts, Poirot felt it again. The pricking sensation of an ancient wound reopening, pouring malice back into their gathering. In the doorway of the study, the tempest howled behind them, echoing the tempest beside him. A sudden realization gripped him. Agatha, where was the letter? A silence ensued, her face draining, wordless trepidation rippling across, her complexion speaking volumes of something beyond the words she did not utter. Before he could press her further, Another sound tore through the air, a deafening crash from within, the unmistakable rattle of glass shattering beneath an unseen weight. They surged into the room, only to find the study empty, notes scattered and the window flung wide open. The storm, bathing the area within an eerie intensity. "It's gone," Agatha gasped, panic volleying through her voice. "Whoever took it, what if they were looking for something we haven't uncovered yet?" Suddenly, from behind them, a voice floated through the darkened door, smooth as silk, yet tainted with malice. "Looking for what, Poirot?" Sir Jasper leaned against the threshold, casually flicking a damp cigarette with disdain, a magnetic charm ensnaring the room as if orchestrating the chaos. "I do believe some matters are best left buried." With the glinting edge of a smirk, he turned away, eyes cold, breaths shallow. Poirot felt the world tilt, burgeoning truths shedding their skin within the chamber, revealing a climax not yet reached, the grip of the unknown tightening ever more dangerously around them. Who was truly in control now, and what chilling shadows of the past were set to awaken? As thunder rang with newfound intensity, Poirot's resolve ignited. The denouement lay all but integral, the ultimate revelation pulsating just beneath the surface, ready to strike with all the force of coming doom. Chapter 7. A Whisper from the Dead. A sharp gasp cut through the torrential downpour outside as the lights flickered violently, a candle spluttering to an early death amidst the enshrouding darkness. Poirot spun around, dread coursing through him as he locked eyes with Lady Evangeline, her alabaster face a mask of terror. And in that fleeting moment of uncertainty, the heavy drapery behind her parted, revealing a crumpled figure collapsing to the cold, polished floor. Lord Whitmore, his lifeless form, sprawled amidst a haphazard scattering of pages, the unmistakable residue of past decisions clinging like ash to the air. "Mon Dieu," he exclaimed, every fibre of his being ignited into action as he rushed forward, his mind racing. Had they not seen enough death, enough fear unfurling in the presence of ominous betrayal? What darkness continued to take root here, festering within the halls of Eldersbury Manor? He knelt beside Whitmore, the rain still battering the window behind him, a cruel reminder of the chaos invading their lives. "Agatha," he called, demanding her presence with quiet urgency. "Where is the letter you spoke of?" He had only to glance at the scattered mess around them, a crescent of damp soil mingling with ink, as if the very earth could weep for the losses sustained within. "I don't know yet, Poirot," she stammered, her voice wavering, shadows of guilt flickering in her eyes. "But I saw him here. He was writing. There was a conversation, an argument about the estate. He seemed distraught." Poirot's heart raced as he sifted through the torn pages. To discover an official letter in Whitmore's hand, the final testament of a nobleman confronting the grim realities of his own mortality, would be an invaluable find, a key that could pry open the delicate balance of power within this house. "Focus, Agatha. His thoughts are inscribed here," he instructed, each word a potent incantation. "Look at the ambience. This cannot have happened by mere accident." Lady Evangeline, now ensconced in a shroud of dread, took a tentative step back, assessing the damage. "He must have found something, or someone must have sought to silence him," she whispered, her voice trembling, eyes brimming with the tension of old contemporaneous grievances. "It was you," Agatha blurted in a sudden lurch of accusation. "You were opposed to Whitmore's plans, the will he intended to finalize. Could this not be a motive to rid him of his burdens. The words sliced the dense air, altering the room's delicate equilibrium, lingering in the silence, much like the residue of death hanging about Whitmore's corpse. "Do not so casually toss vague insinuations," Lady Evangeline retaliated, her composure only barely wavering. "You do not understand the intricacies of my relationship with him. He was not just my facade, he was my chance at legacy." "Legacy?" Poirot prompted, analyzing her face, searching for cracks within her meticulously maintained armor. "What dark shadows fall upon your past, madame? When did you last see Lord Whitmore?" "Yesterday," she admitted, a slight quiver in her voice. "He had shared with me his intent to alter the will, to compartmentalize assets in light of the abominable rise of his acquaintances." She glanced accusatorily around the gathered assembly, then lowered her voice conspiratorially. "He feared revelations would upend us all. The past is never truly buried." Poirot could perceive the trembling undercurrent of fear woven through her arrogance. Each moment quaked with unspent emotion, secrets long believed buried resurfacing like malevolent ghosts against their will. Enigmatic whispers echoed in his mind, urging him to navigate through layers of veiled truths to decode the intimate entanglements of the deceased lord's relationships before time offered them no respite. It was then that he caught Agatha staring intently at one of the pages scattered across the ground, a haunting urgency emanating from her, as if the ink itself cast a spell over her senses. "Look, Poirot," she exclaimed, kneeling to smudge her fingers along a particularly crumpled sheet, revealing a single, prominent name, looped in elegant script. He spoke of a breach in trust, a betrayal. "Here it is. Turning point. Fisher." A chill slithered through Poirot's spine. Fisher, the name echoed profoundly in his mind, an ominous reminder of whispered ambitions that curled dangerously close to calamity. Fisher was to gain much, was he? Not a confidant who could turn rogue, and thus the cycle of candidate behavior shifts, he murmured, piecing together the fragments like a puzzle born from a tempest. "To what end?" Lady Evangeline interjected, her tone sharp, a razor under tension. "What's done is done, Poirot. Whitmore is dead. Does it matter now?" "Does it matter?" Poirot repeated, his voice enshrouded in an unsettling calm. "Questions linger, as shadows do, madame. We unravel them, lest your own truths cast blame upon the living." Without warning, movement erupted in the corner of the room. A resonates clash as the door flung open, another figure tearing through the threshold. Featherstone, his face pallid and breathless. He's gone," he cried, eyes wild as he scanned the space, a lightning bolt of terror illuminating his peril. "I saw him. Fisher is on the run. He knew too much. Here, in the glass." His finger shook, pointing toward the shattered remnants of a once secure chamber, now rendered chaotic. Life overtaken by uncharacteristic uncertainty. "Fisher?" Poirot queried, connecting dots that spiraled within the realm of uncertainty. The very figure believed to haunt the periphery. Behind Featherstone, another presence loomed. Lady Evangeline's features flared in indignation as she made a desperate move towards the doorway, fear slipping, a tumultuous self-preservation clouding her judgment. "Stay out of this," she shrieked, shoving past him. "And yet, our motives intertwine at the precipice of decay," Poirot exclaimed, a twist of alarm rippling through him as he recognized the urgency of the shifting air. "What secret binds you too willingly in the dance of death?" Before she could respond, a screech pierced the void, weaving through the veil around them, a dreadful echo emanating from the shadows, a resonant scream, call of despair against the raging tempest outside that betrayed another hidden layer of this twisted affair, unraveling like a wretched tapestry. "Fisher, what has he done?" Poirot uttered, his pulse racing, heart so strong in the predicaments they uncovered. And just as rapidly, a crack of thunder rolled through the manor as the power flickered, then surrendered to darkness, cloaking them in a void, pregnant with secrets waiting to suffocate them all. Poirot's mind whirled fervently, grappling with fragments, a name, a motive, an insatiable rage ready to erupt. And as the last vestiges of light flicked out, he understood. This was only the beginning of a much deeper malady whose repercussions had yet to be released upon the world. Shadows swirled together, whispers from the dead rising, hinting at connections yet unfathomable, and above them a terrible revelation tightened its grip. Chapter 8: The Secret Beneath the Staircase. A low creak echoed ominously through the darkened hallway just as Poirot reached the grand staircase, the sound like the voice of doom whispering from the shadows. Agatha's hand shot to her mouth, stifling a scream, as a figure tumbled from the upper landing, hurtling into darkness with sickening speed. The damp wood, slick from the storm, amplified the impact as the figure struck the ground, a shattered mess of limbs and fabric. Poirot rushed to the scene, heart pounding with the inescapable dread that another life had met an untimely fate, enveloped in this malevolent atmosphere, heavy with loss. "Mon Dieu," he breathed, crouching low, his sharp eyes scanning the crumpled body. It was Featherstone, eyes wide and mouth agape, as if the sight of something horrific had left him frozen in terror. "What has happened?" Poirot demanded, urgency threading through his voice as Agatha joined him, her expression a testament to the unhinged terror swirling in the air. Struggling to push back the rising panic, she leaned over Featherstone's prone form, her voice shaking. "He might be dead." "No, no, he lives," Poirot asserted, pressing 2 fingers against Featherstone's throat to find a faint pulse. "But something terrible has occurred. You can see it in his eyes, the very shadows clutching at him." As he murmured reassurances over the young man, Poirot's instincts sharpened, driving him to seek the shadows surging forth from the depths of Eldersbury Manor. A fear gnawed at him, an unyielding sense that the sinister designs unfolding around them were merely warming up, preparing to strike at any vulnerable moment. With a swift motion, Agatha pulled out a handkerchief from her coat, attempting to revive Featherstone as thunder roared outside, bolts of jagged light revealing the truth buried within the darkness. "What did you see?" Poirot whispered urgently. "What sent you tumbling into the abyss?" At that moment, Featherstone stirred, his eyes flickering open as a gasp escaped his lips. "He's back. Fisher. Danger." Poirot's heart raced, knowing well this was not a mere coincidence, but perhaps an ominous warning, ringing true within the arch of calamity they all faced. "Fisher," he repeated gravely, as Featherstone coughed, hoarse from the tumble, his fear evident as he attempted to gather his wits. "What do you mean?" "Fisher, hidden secrets," Featherstone stammered, his voice thick with dread. "I saw him, lurking beneath the stairs. A connection. I was looking for answers." "Answers," Agatha echoed, urgency deepening her tone. "What answers do you speak of, Featherstone?" Yet before he could respond, a loud bang reverberated through the manor, shaking the very foundation of their fragile composure. Poirot shot a quick glance toward the direction of the noise, instinctively knowing it invited more chaos than resolution. Lady Evangeline, the things beneath her elegant facade may be unraveling. Poirot's mind whirled furiously as he stood tall, rushing toward the staircase. Come, Agatha. We must investigate this matter further. Perhaps the staircase holds secrets deeper than mere dust. Removing the heavy rug before the grand staircase, Poirot knelt, feeling the cool surface of the dark wood beneath his fingertips. Agatha hovered near him, eyes wide as another clash of thunder echoed ominously as if challenging their resolve. With swift movements, Poirot pressed his palm against the wood grain, and suddenly the breeze of fate shifted. He heard a faint, hollow echo beneath, like a whispering temptation calling for revelation. "Featherstone, can you help?" Poirot called urgently, gesturing at the staircase where wooden steps might cover the answers they sought. As the young man staggered to his feet, shaking off the disorientation, Poirot instructed him, "We must lie upon our bellies at once. Lever this very step." With effort, the three of them pulled, but the sound of thunder outside erupted like gunfire as the hidden space beneath yielded. An ancient door swung open, revealing a secluded area steeped in history and secrets. Dust motes danced in the faint candlelight, illuminated by the jagged streaks of lightning overhead. The air was charged with the weight of unspoken truths, and filaments of despair clung palpably like cobwebs, perhaps left unresolved for far too long. Before them lay a trove of letters, yellowed and bound by finely tied twine, interspersed with small mementos that hinted at lives intertwined and lives taken under the cover of darkness. Poirot seized a letter, its ink faded, yet still crackling with emotion, and swiftly scanned the geometric scrawl of an unmistakable signature. "Fisher. Regardez," he murmured, holding it up to the others. "This cannot be mere coincidence. Compare the tone in Fisher's letters to what we know thus far." Agatha leaned in closer, her eyes darting over the words, recognizing fragments of names they had heard murmured often within the walls of the manor. "But what does it mean?" she whispered. "Why would these be hidden here?" Poirot's gaze narrowed, suspicion brewing as he peered deeper into the secrets unearthed. "It means the past has been carefully guarded. It means trust has been broken and bloodlines perhaps redefined by unseen hands." A chill tightened around them as a draft whispered through the concealed chamber, ruffling the corners of the letters, making shadows dance menacingly against the walls. But before Poirot could voice another observation, the flickering candle extinguished abruptly, plunging them into oppressive darkness. Only the sound of heavy breaths filled the air, punctuated by distant thunder, as the manor groaned, responding to the secrets now threatening to escape their wrappings. "There's someone here," Agatha's whisper shivered as she instinctively reached for Poirot's arm. A figure was closing in on their hidden trove. "I can sense it." Just then, a sound thundered through the darkness. A loud crash echoing from the manor's entryway, a sharp scream slicing through the air, a warning from the very walls that once promised safety. Poirot's heart seized with a mix of fear and determination, knowing they were teetering on the brink of something utterly harrowing. "This is no mere coincidence, dear Agatha. They are onto us." As an icy breath seemed to draw closer, encroaching upon their gathering, the truth lay intertwined with danger, festering dangerously like a wound ready to burst forth into chaos. "We must leave, quickly," Poirot shouted as he felt the dark pulsations throbbing around them. The secrets of this manor were eager to be unearthed, but at what price? As the lingering presence drew nearer, horror twisted his stomach. The sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoed in the hallway. Poirot knew too well that while they sought to uncover the mystery beneath, the implications could ruin them all. Chapter 9. The Final Trap. A scream ruptured the oppressive silence of the Eldersbury Manor. It was a visceral cry of terror that coiled around Poirot's heart like a vice, snapping him from the depths of contemplation. He found himself propelled into the grand hall, eyes wide as Lady Evangeline staggered back from the grand fireplace, her pale hands shaking, a twisted shard of glass glistening with red at her fingertips. "The mirror! He's gone! He's out there!" she shrieked, her voice a strangled whisper laced with panic. Lightning illuminated her face, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls, a canvas of secrets waiting to be unveiled. Poirot rushed to her side, feeling the cold breath of the storm seeping into the atmosphere, trembling with an urgency that demanded immediate action. "Madame, control yourself," Poirot intoned, his voice unwavering. Though his heart drummed a staccato rhythm against his ribcage, this chaos was spiraling far beyond the fragile hold they had established. As thunderclaps resonated from the heavens, drowning Lady Evangeline's frantic gasps, Poirot's mind was already drawing connections, stitching together the frayed threads of this unraveling tapestry. "Tell me precisely what occurred. It is imperative." She visibly swallowed, her eyes shifting, as if still perceiving the unseen spectre of Fisher lurking just behind the flickering shadows. I was staring at the mirror, Poirot. I had hoped to see something, clarity, and then I saw him. He was right there." Her voice cracked, revealing a crack of vulnerability that pierced through the veneer of her haughty demeanor. "But then he vanished. He wants me. He knows." "Knows what?" Poirot pressed, his relentless gaze cutting through her defenses. Agatha, lingering at the threshold, shifted nervously as the miasma of fear thickened, sensing the gravity of the moment. "I cannot say. It's all entangled." Lady Evangeline's voice erupted into shards of desperation. The will was to be revealed. Fisher knew. "And now you speak in riddles, madam," Poirot countered firmly. "Do you not recognize that panic begets chaos? We must bring the suspects together. The truth lies within and around them. The will is but a key to unlocking this nightmare." A deep hush enveloped the room, and Poirot calculated the fractures that spread between them. As if struck by a sudden inspiration, Poirot laid a steady yet commanding finger against his chin, drawing Agatha closer with a nod. "Fetch the others. We shall summon them to the drawing-room under the pretext of revealing the will. It is time to set our final trap." Agatha's eyes brimmed with resolve as she hurriedly departed, while Poirot crouched, examining the remnants of the shattered glass strewn about the hearth, each jagged shard catching wavering light. "Willing to uncover your secrets in one final rush, aren't we, dear Fisher?" he whispered to himself, his mind calculating the dynamics converging upon this wretched haven. As Lady Evangeline retreated into anxious silence, Poirot's pulse surged with an electric anticipation, every pulse acting as a beacon illuminating the darkness surrounding them. The very air felt thick with secrets, mounting tension, swirling like a tempest. He could almost hear the whispers materialize, the unvoiced confessions skittering along the polished olive wood of the drawing-room floor, tangled with the threads of ambition, betrayal, and fear. Within scant moments, Agatha returned with the gathered suspects. Featherstone, still pale, but now invigorated by a desire for clarity. Mr. Atwood, the brooding solicitor, eerily composed. Lady Lucy, her beauty illuminated by a fierce determination, hiding behind a veil of vulnerability, and even the brooding gardener, eyes scanning the room with a predatory instinct. Poirot ushered them in, his commanding presence casting an aura of authority that temporarily quelled their whirling anxieties. "Welcome, everyone," Poirot declared, folding his hands as he stood before them. The room crackled with a charge, the atmosphere a coiled spring, ready to snap. "I trust you understand the urgency of our meeting. The time has come to face the truth, unravel the web of lies that encircles us, obscuring the paths now begging us to see clearly. Lady Evangeline was to reveal the will, and so, I ask, what do you know of it?" Eyes darted around the room, suspicion knitting brows, each face masked in uncertainty, every pulse quickened with betrayal skimming just beneath the surface. "You think I'd betray my family?" Lady Evangeline hissed, a fire igniting in her demeanor. "I have nothing to hide." Poirot's eyes scrutinized her, dissecting the jagged contours of fear wrapped firmly beneath bravado. "We shall see, madame," he replied smoothly. "And what of you, Featherstone? You fell from the precipice of knowledge, a glimpse of Fisher's plight. Speak, what did you discover?" At this, Featherstone fidgeted, unease, fracturing his composure. "I've seen nothing but echoes, Monsieur Poirot. What lies beneath is but a house of illusions." "Illusions that cloak the truth," Poirot interjected, his voice firm as he drew out a folded letter from his coat pocket, the very one he had discovered beneath the staircase's ancient whisper. "This letter, my dear suspects, is a fragment of that illusion. Whispers of relationships unspoken, connections that resonate like the echoes of ghosts that haunt this manor. And it bears the unmistakable mark of one Fisher." Gasps floated through the room as he waved the letter before them, the truth now tangible, poised on the edge of revelation. The murmurs thickened, tension throbbed like a drumbeat, washing over them in waves. Fingers tightened reflexively, glancing furtively for any sign of treachery. Poirot held the room's hushed essence in his palm, the very silence a pressure cooker on the brink. "Now," he said, penetrating their collective dread, "let us reveal the allegiances that cloaked this evening in deceit. Who doubts Fisher's wrath? Who weaves a narrative to escape his grasp?" With every question, a layer of their facades crumbled, emotions sparking like flint igniting dry straw. Poirot allowed the moment to hang, savoring the rising tension that fluttered like a shroud across manipulated hearts until time itself felt suspended. And then, amidst the gathering storm of accusation, a sudden crash echoed from the corridors of Eldersbury, a sound so jarring that it sent a ripple of transformative dread through their collective hearts. "Stay here," Poirot commanded as he spun sharply around, taking each step with predatory haste. The others stood frozen, their gaze blinking with panic and confusion. Some half turned to the door, others transfixed with rising dread. But Poirot remained focused. He knew in the heart of the storm, with the curtain of secrets about to rise, that the final revelations were close, yet fraught with danger unseen. His instincts prickled, leaving him on high alert as the echo of footsteps approached from beyond the threshold. Without another breath, the heavy door of the drawing room swung open violently and a figure stumbled inside, haggard, frantically disheveled, gasping for breath as if escaped from the jaws of some grievous fate. It was Fisher, wild eyes glinting like a feral creature cornered, hands raised in surrender. A moment before he too seemed almost swallowed by shadows closing in on all sides. Stay back. You don't understand. I've discovered—" His voice trembled with abject fear, words trailing off, inviting them to the precipice of the unknown. Poirot felt his heart tethered to the unfolding chaos, the culmination of spiraling secrets dancing dangerously towards an inevitable climax. In the murky jaws of uncertainty, he could sense the danger, lurking in the depths, looming nearer with each heartbeat. And just as it felt they would claw towards clarity, he knew the cataclysm awaited. "Fisher, what have you learned?" Poirot demanded, his voice a resonant force slicing through the din. But before the tortured man could introduce his revelation, another scream reverberated from the depths of the manor, a banshee wail echoing of a horror imperceptible, again shaking the very foundation of their fragile reality. "Something wicked lurks within these walls," Francesca screeched, her figure illuminated partially in the doorway, frozen, a visage of horror that promised more. Troubling revelations ahead, as shadows thickened and uncertainty clawed at their throats. A final pause gripped the air, an unseen hand eager to unravel further threads of destinies, bearing down on them all as Poirot's instincts reshaped that isolated moment into a fine blade. The darkness was closing in again, and every pulse screamed a warning. The final trap was laid, but the snare was yet to be sprung. Chapter 10. The Truth Buried in the Garden. A flash of lightning split the night sky, illuminating the garden in a stark, ghostly glow, where the dense foliage writhed as if alive with foreboding. Poirot stepped through the heavy wooden door that led outside, the air charged with a palpable tension, a crackle of static waiting to manifest into chaos. He had arrived just in time to catch the sharp inhalation of Lady Lucy, who stood motionless, transfixed at the foot of a gnarled old tree, their breath mingling in clouds that dissipated against the cool, rain-darkened air. Beneath the tree lay a collapsed form, half hidden by the overgrown weeds and peering shadows, a figure slack but unmistakable, drenched in the heavy scent of earth and the acrid tang of fear. "Hold steady, madame," Poirot commanded, as he strode forward, the senses within him sharpened by instinct and urgency. The flash had revealed the worst, the unthinkable. A body sprawled unnaturally beneath the branches, the lifeless form of Mr. Atwood, the solicitor, his eyes now closed, casting eternal shadows over secrets that might never breathe again. A slight gasp escaped Lady Lucy's lips. "He's dead." Even as she spoke, the words carried an undercurrent of uncertainty, a whisper of something unshared, something unfurling in the depths of her gaze. Piercing the veil of the garden's silence hung the weight of unacknowledged truths as Poirot knelt beside the body, a meticulous observer even in the darkness. "Stay back, ensure you do not disturb anything," he instructed, forcing to unseal the knot of devastation vaulting in his chest. In the querulous flicker of the lantern held by Agatha, he noted the contorted fingers of Mr. Atwood reaching towards something, perhaps a final plea for revelation, a cryptic message or a secret he could not voice. The rain began to patter insistently, as if the heavens conspired to wash away sins buried beneath this bountiful earth. With every droplet that melted against his skin, Poirot's mind raced to piece together the fragments scattered by this tragic demise. "Curious, is it not?" he murmured, positioning himself to scrutinize Mr. Atwood further. "This gentleman, known for his meticulous observations, finds himself as the very subject of an investigation." He raised a brow towards Lady Lucy, searching for her reaction, sensing the layers of her composure fraying in the tempest of emotional upheaval. "Do not speak so insensitively, Poirot," she implored, her voice trembling. Whether from tears or culpability, he could not yet tell. "He was my father's closest confidant. You must understand. There are forces at play, beyond our mortal comprehension, with the will to be revealed and Fisher's threats lurking behind every corner." The crack in her facade widened, revealing deeper fears and unresolved grievances bubbling beneath. "Yet it is vital," Poirot interjected firmly, "that we face these escalating threats without yielding to panic. This garden may well cradle the key to Mr. Atwood's untimely end." He glanced back towards the body, a letter partially tucked beneath the collar of the deceased's pristine shirt, fluttering like a whisper, desperate to escape. Carefully, Poirot extricated it, observing how the paper was stationary even under the storm's insistence. Ignoring the pull of melodrama around them, he meticulously scanned the note, allowing Lady Lucy and a stunned Francesca to absorb the shocking revelation. "May I remind you," he stated, pinning their attentions, "that while Mr. Atwood sits in eternal repose, we are drawn closer to the truth that dances just out of reach." Slipping the letter open with deliberate slowness, he marveled at the elegant penmanship, the curvatures of the strokes betraying emotions wrapped tightly in its ink. Therein, a hurried proclamation blossomed like a flower. "The truth lies in the garden. The will conceals more than mere words." "What do you make of it?" Agatha queried, her brow knitted into formations of concern as she played with the hem of her dress, which seemed to absorb the damp gloom around them. "Indeed, this garden may yield deeper roots," Poirot mused, his eyes locked with Lady Lucy's as if searching for a quiet truth trapped within her expression. "It beckons questions of what Mr. Atwood feared to reveal, a secret that perhaps entangled many strands of this web." Lady Lucy winced, her posture betraying a flicker of horror at the truths buried within the muddied earth. "You suspect someone here? In our family?" Her voice trembled, a plea for sanity amidst rising madness. "Were it as simple as that," Poirot replied, the profound sympathy in his eyes not lost amidst the burgeoning storm. "But do not hold your breath. Darkness intersects every corner, madame. Trust me when I say that. Every alibi is suspect, and every lamentation a potential mask." Suddenly, a movement caught Poirot's eye, a rustle in the dense foliage just beyond the illuminated perimeter of their lantern's glow. There was no mistaking the creeping figure that peered from the shadows. Gardner. His presence pulsed with a curiosity that twisted unnaturally beneath the rain-slicked branches, lurking with an intensity that defied mere caution. "Is that you, Gardner?" Poirot called, his voice steady yet commanding, as the rain dripped off the brim of his hat, framing him as both savior and sentinel. The gardener hesitated for a moment, his gaze shifting nervously from the grim tableau to Poirot's unwavering question. "Just admiring the foliage, sir," he offered, an edge of defiance poking through the vacuous charm of his words. "Fancy a look at what grows in this garden." Poirot prodded softly, pushing against a thickening defiance as his observations drilled into the man's flustered expression. "You, too, may harbor secrets worthy of unearthing." The air seemed to constrict, the confrontation thickening around them as Poirot fixed Gardner under his unyielding gaze. For the briefest moment, a flicker of shadow danced across the young man's face. Was it guilt? Fear? The tempest bathed them all in uncertainty, the racing pulse of nature echoing their rising tension. "You lie," Lady Lucy interjected suddenly, the words exploding from her like an uncaged beast. "What do you know about the will, Gardner?" Before he could reply, a shrill cry reverberated through the garden, its source unknown, yet suffused with urgency. The noise bore down upon them, powerful enough to stop even the rain-dampened hearts within their chests. All eyes turned toward the sprawling thicket, where moments ago a presence had slipped into the shadows. Now it seemed those shadows were intent on reclaiming them. "Stay close," Poirot commanded, rising to face the encroaching darkness that seemed to swell around them, weaving chaos into clarity. The ominous tension tightened like a noose, and as the storm roared in acceptance, Poirot's pulse raced with the echoes of unspoken truths crying out, somewhere amid the secrets buried in this garden, a killer awaited. Chapter 11. The Confession. No one heard. The cacophony of thunder rolled like drums in a distant storm. But the true tempest erupted a heartbeat later, as Francesca stumbled forth, a crumpled letter unfurling from trembling fingers like a wounded bird spreading its wings. "He wasn't alone," she gasped, breathing the words between ragged breaths, the frigid air electrified by the weight of her confession. "I saw them, together, just before it happened." A crack of lightning illuminated the garden, starkly defining the figures around her, a tableau of shock, the shadows twisting as the strong scent of damp earth mingled with their sudden dread. "What do you mean, together?" Poirot pressed, his voice slicing through the chaos, each syllable a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Lady Lucy's eyes widened, her expression shifting from disbelief to a rising tide of horror as the implications sank in. "Mr. Atwood, he was meeting someone here, beneath this very tree," Francesca stammered, glancing furtively towards the intricate branches clawing against the storm-laden sky. "I saw the figure, a man. I never thought—" Her voice trailed off, the implications of her words dangling ominously in the charged atmosphere. Poirot's mind whirred, every vivid detail trapping itself in the web of truth. "The shadows do not lie, madame. It was a meeting of great significance, one that perhaps sealed Mr. Atwood's fate," he surmised, his thoughts racing with visions of dark motivations buried deep within the confounding hearts surrounding him. The rain lashed against them, and Poirot turned to examine the sporadic patterns of droplets on the slick ground, considering the heaviness of secrets weighing down just beneath the surface. The way Francesca's fingers trembled, the deepening pallor of Lady Lucy's face, the sudden tension in Gardner's stance. They were fragments of a larger collective fear, waiting to be unveiled. "What did you see?" Poirot asked Francesca, gently, coaxing her mind to navigate the making of the scene. "You must remember, it is of utmost importance." There were words exchanged, something about a will, about control. "A heated quarrel," she murmured, shaking off the remnants of disbelief clinging to her thoughts. "I thought it was just another family dispute, the brewing tension surfacing like a witless storm. Dare I say, one that turned deadly," Poirot interjected, his gaze catching Lady Lucy's astounded expression. "It seems we hold truths darker than nightfall itself, lurking in the shadows of familial bonds, strange alliances bound by loss and greed." Gardner shifted, his posture tightening, evoking suspicion anew as he stepped toward Poirot, a nervous energy sparking beneath the glisten of raindrops on his brow. "It wasn't meant to be like this. Mr. Atwood brought the trouble upon himself." He glared at Francesca, his tone mockingly defiant, as if attempting to shield himself from the dissolution of innocence that threatened to engulf them. "Then you are indeed privy to this meeting," Poirot deduced slowly, each word drumming capital truth into the saturating air. You admit to knowing of its existence, of its contentious nature? A pulse of tension ignited among them, and the gardener's eyes darkened, skirting the perimeter of accusation, now circling like vultures. I knew what I had to do, to protect myself, the estate. Gardner's voice rose with fervor, his hands thrust hard into his pockets as if wrestling with demons unseen. I had no choice. Atwood was too close to the heart of it. He held the keys that could unlock too many doors. A choice taken too far, would you not agree? Poirot scrutinized him with the precision of a hawk trained on its quarry. To silence him. Your fear incentivized your actions. It is quite the tragic dance of existential desperation. His brow furrowed as he appraised how guilt constricted Gardner's throat like a choking vine, a trellis of deceit entwined with mortality and consequence. Before Gardner could respond, a strangled scream shattered the night, echoing from the manor's depths like a warning siren wailing through a storm-darkened sky. Francesca clutched her head, horror-stricken, as if hunting ghosts parading from beyond the grave. It came from inside, she gasped, her widest eyes reflecting a blend of terror and intrigue that reverberated through the collected breath of the garden. I fear our time is dwindling, Poirot said, his pulse quickening in tandem with the swell of urgency enveloping them. We must make haste. Secrets demand to be unearthed, and fears must be confronted. Come. As they sprinted towards the manor, the muffled sounds of anguish and confusion spiraled just ahead, tension thickening in the tight space as they moved like shadows, chasing whispers under the hanging drapery of curtains blowing wildly in the gusts of wind. Wait, Lady Lucy panted, clutching her chest as they maneuvered through the confines of darkness, creeping closely behind them. What if the truth is too dangerous to unveil? What if things we cannot control possess the power to consume us all? But it is command and control that devours the innocent, Poirot countered resolutely, and those who wear masks of respectability become instruments of chaos. Yet you are right. A risk is shared for those who venture deeper into the unknown. Just then, there was a sudden thud from the other room, and the lights flickered, momentarily before plunging them into shadow. In the depth of the swirling dark stood a corner, dim and ominous. A figure, barely discernible, appeared etched in sharp relief against the flickering candlelight. What have you gathered, Poirot? The voice was tense, pressing with the weight of unspoken threats, as a singular truth lodged heavily on the edge of revelation. Poirot felt the tide of urgency swell around him as the figure stepped forward into the light, illuminating a face both familiar and yet foreign, cloaked in the aura of unexpected danger. What confessions do you harbor, my dear? Poirot challenged, his own heart racing in rhythm with the danger coiling tightly within the walls of the manor. The inevitable storm of truths was about to drown them all. And yet, another scream shattered the night, a crescendo of panic and impending doom that sent a viscous chill coursing through Poirot's veins. As Lady Lucy gripped his arm tighter, the figure moved, revealing something glittering dangerously in a flash, a weapon, a threat hidden deliberately against the very fabric of their collected sanity. In that heart-stopping moment, as shadows eclipsed clarity and dread loomed, Poirot braced himself for the catastrophic unveil of hidden loyalties. The game had just truly begun, and its full weight was yet to come crashing down. Chapter 12. The Glass Shatters. The shattering sound pierced the air like a gunshot, a crystal shard flying from the remains of a broken vase that had tumbled as the figure inched closer, weapon gleaming ominously under the feeble light of flickering candles. Lady Lucy's scream was swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere, her fingers clutching Poirot's arm so tightly that he felt the pulse of her fear surging through him. In that fleeting moment, a chill enveloped the room, a palpable suspense, coiling tighter around them as the light trembled against the dark. Shadows elongated, stretching menacingly across the walls, mocking their frantic hearts. "Stop!" Poirot exclaimed, his voice sharp as a knife, imposing authority into the panic swirling like a tempest. The figure hesitated, their identity nearly lost within a shroud of uncertainty. The garden's recent storm had invaded the manor, and filmy curtains billowed with the unnatural gusts that mocked their lives with secrets deeper than any storm could conjure. Poirot's mind whirred, the clues flickering before him like a flashing bulb. Francesca's fevered confession, Gardner's guilty shift, Lady Lucy's mounting dread, all mingling into a tapestry of tangled lies and buried motives. "Who do you think you are?" The figure spat defiantly, nearly hidden by the fuming shadows, brandishing the weapon in a half-hearted grip, wavering between fright and aggression. The room dripped with urgency, the air thickening with suspended breaths as Poirot studied the quivering hand and the wild eyes that flickered like candles in a breeze. "You cower behind your weapon. Why not show your true self, mon ami?" Poirot beckoned calmly, knowing that fear often hides in the most unexpected of forms. The figure shifted. Betrayal flickered across their face like a candle extinguished mid-glow. In the dim shadows, Poirot discerned familiar fatigue etched into the man's features, a blend of desperation and defiance. It was Gardner, his eyes wide in panic. "You don't understand. I had to protect what is mine." Gardner's voice cracked, hysteria creeping under the surface like a festering wound. Atwood was just the beginning. He would have destroyed everything. "You don't know what he was planning," Lady Lucy faltered, her breath hitching as she processed the implications. "What plans? What could be so monstrous?" she cried, her voice trembling, torn between repulsion and curiosity. "Don't indulge him, Lucy," Francesca interjected, her breath still rapid, as she struggled to process the chaos enveloping them. "Atwood is dead. We cannot change the past simply by confronting him or—" She faltered, her gaze flickering back to Poirot, searching for guidance, the bedraggled remnants of her certainty unraveling. But Poirot was already shifting, the electric tension filling the space, alighting his careful analysis. "Indeed, Madame Francesca, but the shadows of the past can inform the decisions we make in the present. This threat rises from the roots of fear and regret. Every action taken in desperation breeds consequences." Gardner's eyes flared with rebellion and terror, the weapon cradled like a fragile truth on the brink of revealing an even darker reality. "You don't know what it feels like to lose everything," he shouted, the uncertainty fermented into anger. "You were not there. Atwood had his hands wrapped around our lives like a vice, and the minute I saw him with that man—" Who was with him?" Poirot pressed, his tone sharp, threading through Gardner's tumult like a needle. Caught momentarily off guard, Gardner's certainty faded into another flash of fear. "I may not know his name, only that he wanted to usurp control, a partnership to undo what—" "What, exactly?" Lady Lucy's voice was a precarious thread, twisting between fear and desperation. "You mean to say you murdered Atwood for your own interests, to protect this property. No, Gardner roared. The instability of his position, growing as he gestured wildly with the weapon, each movement a plea for understanding amidst the maelstrom. I needed to stop him. My involvement, my fear was growing, and when I found out about the will, money is power, and those willing to spill blood for it will stop at nothing. Poirot's mind raced, redirecting fragments of Gardner's fervour into the puzzle they supported. Lady Lucy blanched, wrapping her arms around her herself, struck by realization. The will? What do you mean about the will? Gardner locked eyes with Poirot, then flicked back to Lady Lucy, his expression shifting as shadows crept around, obscuring any glimmer of innocence. You might think you know who you trust, but you do not see the depths to which a person will sink. You didn't know Atwood. He wore that friendly smile like a mask, but within it lay the heart of a predator. Enough of this, Francesca interrupted, stepping forward, driven by impulse, yet torn with apprehension. You've said he was with someone. Who was it? Who was his companion? The air hung heavily, each breath fraught with unasked questions, Gardner recoiling before the weight of their collective gaze, the suffocating pressure trapping him, inching toward desperation. Poirot inhaled sharply, straining to tie the strands together, believing fiercely in the capacity of those driven to silence, to lie, risking everything for the sake of their own cover. The weapon slipped for a fraction of a second, and the room gasped in unison, helpless against the torrent of truth threatening to spill forth. In that split heartbeat, ambition, despair, and the bitter taste of regret churned like storm-tossed waves crashing against the craggy rocks of conscience. And then the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. The scream of a fragile shard of glass echoing somewhere in their minds. The fracas of parting truths and broken promises was unbridled. And just as chaos threatened to swallow them, a shadowy shape loomed in the doorway, silent and imposing. Are you all quite finished? It was a voice low and threatening, dripping with a malice that struck deeper than any weapon ever could. The figure was imposing, skeletal under the faint light of a dying candle. The breath caught in everyone's throats, and Poirot's heart pounded as the pieces of the puzzle coiled tighter, the game intensifying in a way that no one anticipated, only to unravel with the utterance of a name now hovering on the edge of revelation, twining through uncertainty and dread. It's not just the gardener who holds the brimming glass of secrets. With those words hanging ominously in the charged air, Poirot braced himself, the impending storm of truths on the cusp of breaking free, a shattering moment that would alter all that lay before them, sealing their fates in uncharted darkness.